Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Thimbleberry Manor, the French chateau inspired house for lots of mice. So we are getting to the end of all of this. I believe there are 2 episodes left. Now, you would have noticed I missed an episode a fortnight ago because that was a lead up to Easter and I wanted to play with some Easter projects and things like that. So we're back, and I think 2 more episodes and we will have a finish on the inside of the house. I do have a little bit of work on the bathroom to do, but it's not anything major. It's just a few soft textures and things like that. So we'll catch that in amongst all of this. So now, the middle of the house is the retail sector, but it does include a room here that a tutor or a guest would stay in. I was thinking more of a teacher that would camp there for the couple of days and then come up and teach a class. So I have been just popping furniture in there since nearly day dot, moving it around, thinking about it, adjusting, all sorts of things. And I haven't been real happy with it. And while I was doing the whole kitchen lounge room area, I started sort of looking now properly into it. And I've decided that in this episode, this area, which was going to be retail, is going to be a teaching space. It's small, it's cramped, and to squeeze retail in there as well as retail up the top here, it just seemed a bit disjointed. And as I was making lots of lists of things that I would want in my shop, it made sense that they were on this whole top level and I could divide it down into departments. Because at the moment, if you look up here, we have tea, coffee, cake for students. I just got to grab Fudge. He's standing on the table, wants to hop down. And down there, I had a bookcase full of excess books, which then got taken up to become the cheese pantry larder at the top here in the kitchen. And just by doing that, by taking that piece of furniture out, gave me the thought that let's drop the tea service down to there. And then along that back wall are quilts hanging on the railing, quilts. It's more of a display zone, that like a gallery, like the artwork. Then this little area here would be perfect for the table and chairs and would sort of feel like it's got its proper space. And then everything that's down the bottom here would come up. I'd have to strip out some furniture that just is not going to work, which is a good thing because it's feeling crowded as well. The back wall has sort of become a bit of a dumping station. I have a half cupboard scenario there that doesn't quite fit where it would fit perfectly over there. Yeah, I've got a cutting table I just love, but can we see what's happening on it? Yeah, anyway, I've got lots of things that I need to nut out there, but this week, this session, if I lower the camera down, is going to be in here where we put in the students' table, students, a teacher, and then the back wall we'll look at doing a gallery of quilts. So I do have some quilts already made, but not a lot. And now that I've got this whole big wall, I think I'll be doing more. So miniature quilts. I've got the little log cabin. Now, those who follow me in stitching videos would have seen these pop up from time to time. This little one is little log cabin again, but just playing with the layout of them. So these will hang on the back wall around the place and also the railing. I think they'll look really sweet. This one here is another little log cabin that I created recently. Just has to be finished off. And I've had this piece of fabric for a little while, and it's, I don't know, it's just inspirational. It's come from Susanna, Vintage Blend Studios. It was part of a little kit. So I'm wondering if I do a bit of a slow stitch floral collage piece for the back wall. and fussy cut this all out, recompose it, thread paint, you know, all of those things. So that's on my list as well. So stay tuned on the quilt department. When I get all the furniture out, that's when I'll decide where these are going and you know, how many more I need to make. All right, I do have in the background on the furniture already lots of bolts of fabric, lots of fat quarters. Let me just grab out. There's something therapeutic about pulling everything out that's been sitting there and then doing the whole process of making the actual stage, because it's like I've had all this play where I've been hypothesizing, and now it's come to the pointy end where I've got to, you know, make the decisions and install the installations. So that there is one of two bookcases that are in the back there that I've been, whenever I have a moment, making bolts of fabric, wrapping them on paddle pops, and then wrapping up scraps into fat quarters, and then you can see there jelly rolls. So I've shown you, you can't see that because my finger's in the way. Yeah, a little jelly roll there behind my thumb. So these goodies will now go up the top into the retail shop. I think the level at the top will look more like a department store now. It was feeling really, really disjointed. I like how this styled up when I was fiddling around, you know, fabric rolled out, cash registers, bolts of fabric, maybe some impulse purchasing happening there. So all of that comes out. That might get used. And the table, can you see my fingers? Yeah. Let me just wriggle this a bit. The other thing too is on the table here I was slinging sewing machines. I'll show you in a moment. It's got another mouse that's sitting, chairs, heaps of work to do. So we embellish all those. Another chair. These little sewing machines, I've picked up a couple from Temu. A couple have been gifted to me, and then I found one at a thrift store. So I think they need to be more of a display, because this is a slow stitching mouse zone. It's not a sewing machine quilt zone. So this little table will come down into here and it'll be dressed accordingly. Yeah, so I think if I've got this wall at the back at the next level up, I will be able to do a vintage sewing machine collection and things like that. So, yay. It was like a light bulb moment when I realised that it was still a bit disjointed and that I needed to consider, you know, rearranging the furniture again, which is half the fun, I think. So I'm just taking to my workstation all the bits that I'll need to dress, finish, move, create. So we'll have chairs, we'll have some mice, we'll pop a few over there. The mouses, the Mises. So just for any questions that had happened recently, it's the pattern from the Mouse Mansion, which you just download, and just ignore the stabbing pin and holding a tail there. And I just dress them. Now these little guys, I thought I might have to redesign the patterns so that they're sitting in a chair and the bottom half is missing, but I managed to bend them because of the wiring in them, and I don't have to cut a mouse in half. Gotta be happy with that. So Mises will stay intact. So I've got a tea service sitting here and waiting as well, plus one upstairs. Oops. And that's how it all goes. Just ignore my band-aid. So I made the video for the kitchen lounge earlier this week and cut my finger, if you recall. So there's all my fabrics that I've been making. I'll pilfer some of those to style this section, but they'll pretty much be going up here. So now my space is empty. How fantastic is that? Let me go down here and show you. There we go. So yeah, let's begin. I'll just put the table back in. Yeah, that's going to be heaps better. I think it'll tell the story, if you know what I mean. It will, yeah, really good. Let's just see what quilts look like. I've got two sizes here. Yeah, see, they're good on that wall. And then my thought was to have some over the balustrading, especially when they're not backed, and this one's not. So that's, well, it is sort of. I had a base plate when I started to stitch this one, like these two. You know, I start with a base of calico and then stitch away, but it's made them quite firm. In the process of making this one, this was part of the project for Susanna's panel. You'll see that now rolling through. So you're sort of seeing a bit ahead of time here of how that all worked out. This square, because I jiggered up the laying down of the block, I put two side by side instead of going dump, 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 you know. So that second one was like, I've jiggered it. So then I just started doing 2 by 2 by 2 as you go around that center piece. And in the process, it threw it off kilter, and my quilt built on my square back, not making the back of the fabric. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Don't know how I managed to get into that transit of information. So, yeah, this now, happy accident, has given me a soft edge. So I can actually pin that on there and it bends over betterer. I'm just going to lean across the camera. I've got these tiny little, what do they call them? Clips, pegs. See those? Tiny, tiny little pegs. So I'm thinking of using those on the railing to hold the quilts in place. So I'm positive that that quilt is going there. Let's just peg it. Can we peg it? Having that extra bulk missing. Yeah, we can. So there we go. We've got our first quilt installation. Right. Let's begin. Okay, I'll pause the video, gather my thoughts, and work out how many quilts I'm actually going to need to make for that back wall. We do need a tea service, so I'll decide whether the one from up here that's sitting up there comes down, or I use this little side hall table. So I'm going to make a decision about that. I think I have in there somewhere the thingy that goes on the wall above such things. I'm positive I do, because I was thinking of using it for the kitchen, but where did I put it? I must have put it back in the boxes as you're not needed. There's a second one here. If I come up there, see this in here? That's one of those over the kitchen things. Has little drawers, but I thought that was really shop-like, so I'll save that for up there on a wall, because, you know, fabric could go in it, something like that. I need to get to this corner, and you guys are in my way a little, so I'll just move the camera slightly. Oop, nearly fell over. I'll just have a look in here. No, I know it's here somewhere. It's like a wall unit. I just can't see it off the top of my head. All right, and I'm pretty sure it's timber colored, so I got one to pick from, because I'll use that there. There's that nasty band-aid again. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, one of those and two half table things that could be utilized for it. Anyway, I will pause the video and get my thoughts together, work out what my projects are, and take you along for the ride. See you shortly. Okay, I'm back. Have figured it all out. The table works perfectly in that space and doesn't feel as crowded as it did upstairs. The trolley that I've had for a while, I'm thinking that's going to be the teacher's supplies, you know, bits and pieces that she may have gathered from upstairs for her class. I'll style the table. We've got 2 students and the teacher, so that's those 3 mice taken care of. It does mean I will need to make more mice for upstairs, some customers, because I only have 1 made. I think I have another one cut somewhere, so that's all good. Then in the corner, I chose the white table, not the brown table. The little brown table, just leaning in here, was too narrow. The top of it, there goes the shelf. The top of it was too narrow, so I just couldn't do anything with it. So we'll save that for potentially something up the top here. Pop that out of the way. What else have I made a decision on? The quilts. If you look into the background on the back wall, you'll see the red square log cabin is just leaning there. There's a gap. And then there's another log cabin. So it's sort of the whole back is different versions of log cabins, which I think is pretty cool. We've got a bit of a story happening there, different ways you can play with the classic log cabin. And this is going to be the feature quilt, which is more of a slow stitch thing. So the class can flip from quilting traditional blocks, but with a slow stitch feel, and then an actual proper thread painted slow stitched piece. So that's my project. That'll take a little while. So yeah, that's where we're at. Style the little nook for a snack, style the table, style that, and then anything else that pops into my mind can be, you know, added to the space. I threw that doily back in there. I really like it, and I'm thinking I'm going to go look for some other doilies like that, you know, cut out medallions, and just scatter them on the floor. So it's just lots of circles. I'm thinking that's going to help soften the space as well. And just inside the bedroom there's a crocheted doily peeking out from underneath the student's desk, the student's bedroom. So I think that sort of carries that whole theme across. So yeah, there we go. All right, I'll pause the video. I'm off to play and I'll be back in a moment. Hello everyone, I'm back. So it's actually the next day, and I've pulled everything now over to my desk to start really thinking about layout and what elements I need to make. So like usual, turn the camera on and get my head around it all with you guys. So I just actually watched the little bit of video footage I filmed yesterday to just remind myself layout and that, because once everything's on my desk and a day goes by, as you can imagine, things get forgotten. So I noticed in that video, just to ignore my new Band-Aid, my finger's healed, so that Band-Aid's gone, but went to the farm yesterday and helped my brother with a few bits and bobs around the place, and I did a bit of brooming, and I've given myself a blister, so please apologise. Sorry you got to look at a Band-Aid, is basically what I'm saying. Anyway, doesn't matter. So when I just looked at that little video, I had a mouse sitting here. So that's workstation number 1. And I've had these little pieces of embroidery and slow stitch reels and things like that sitting around. So my thought is the mouse that's sitting here will be slow stitching. A little while ago, can't remember if I showed you this, I saw a video in the miniature world of them making a pincushion out of a button. And I thought, how clever. So I made one for myself, and I got some of the applique pins, trimmed them off and poked them in. And then I got a needle and cut it down and poked it in with a little bit of thread. So that accessory can go with the table scene. So this mat I created myself, and there's a bigger version upstairs that's going to be on a cutting table. I was thinking that I'd give each mouse a mat, but I don't think I will, because it sort of blocks up my table a little bit. So the teacher mouse is standing here. So my thought is we have the teacher mouse working on maybe preparing some kits for the next class. So that little mat will be everything I can think of in prepping for teaching. This little mouse over here needs an activity. Haven't really thought that far yet. This little container, I got, I think, a dozen of them with a bookcase thing that is perfect for a bakery, and they never really got used. So what I was thinking of doing with that is finding a little bit of lace, and I just grabbed my big thing of lace here, and to enhance it a little, where's the end to the lace? There's never the end. I also have that up my sleeve. Is finding something that's too big. Maybe a narrower lace that just went around the bottom. Yeah, that's way too big. Is finding a little itty bitty lace, there'll be something there, and decorating the bottom of it. And then in there, I fill it full of orts. So I've got lots of bits and pieces left from stitching different projects, and they're in the right colour palette. Oh, I can't get them out. Anyway, you know what I mean. So what I think I'll do is I'll sit there and pull out some threads and maybe, I don't know, wind them up and fill this up. So let's imagine that's now full of different threads for mice to pull from to do some embroidery and slow stitch. And that little piece can sit on the table as a, you know, pull it piece. Anyway, this here, now this was part of a sewing kit that, you know, those really cheap little sewing kits you can buy, and you chuck them in your glove box and you've got a button of threads, a couple needles. Well, the threads, I sat there one day and lassoed them like that. And I thought, well, you know, maybe they can be used somewhere. So that somewhere is now, I think the other three colours was a bright blue, yellow, green, and I grabbed these three, and I'm thinking that the mouse over here maybe is doing, I don't know, we'll have to come up with a craft for her. Oh, I know, actually, in here, which we're going to get to, is I've been making some itty-bitty English paper piece hexagons with the plan to make a quilt. And to be honest, not a quilt for a mouse. To be honest, I've lost interest. But everything's in there trimmed and ready to go. So what if we create a display here? See if I upend this. I've got, when I was getting ready to go to Italy, I sort of pre-cut some little morsels here ready to make potential squares, but I never picked it up. And I've got 3. And I threw it on the table here because if I just pause from that a moment, when I went through the house and had a look at what I can fit on the back wall, I've glued down this quilt to a rail, and then the rail gets attached to the wall, so it literally looks like it's off the wall, not just stuck on the wall. It's like a proper presented piece. So I've done that to my 2 pre-made blocks, so they're ready to install. In the middle, I can fit a slow stitched panel that size. So I've pre-cut my pieces and I've slung them all here, and as soon as I get this out of the way, that's what we're going to work on next. Now, on the railing is a quilt that you saw installed a minute ago. Well, there's another section of railing that can have something, and then also behind the tea service, I don't have a wall unit because the roof is low and there's a tall plastic thing that holds cakes and it just didn't fit. So there's potential some little itty bitty blocks or samplers or something can go there as well, which I haven't thought yet. But on back to the rail, I think there's room for a thin something to go on. And that's why I'll put this on the desk, because, and yay, I've got 3. I think I could do a little sampler. It'll only be narrow, but like a table runner. Where's my scissors? I'm thinking I'm going to do this. Now, if you remember back to previous episodes, I did a full quilt with mini hexagons. So I always felt like I wanted something downstairs in the shop to reflect the fact that that quilt then got made by the mices, to be a doona, you know, a doona cover. I'll insert a picture of that finished quilt. So if that quilt's upstairs in Skeeter's bedroom, well, where did she get the inspiration? I'm thinking, to save myself some time and not make a whole nother quilt, is we do a piece, a sampler like that. So then I get some hexagons here that I haven't massacred with pins. There's a good one. Most of them I've used. This might be a challenge. See, they've got holes in them. So if I have a little hexagon that's not used, there's one. So she could have a couple of those. She's got plenty of fabric. We can create something out of all these scrappy bits. I could even make a little bowl. I did think about making a little fabric slow stitched bowl. That'd be cute. And I could put potentially the fabrics in it. So I've got plenty of those. Right, so we've got some plans happening here. There's another one that hasn't been used. So we've got 3 only, because you can reuse your templates. So I'll put them back in there for a rainy day. Oh, please, I don't have to make that little quilt. You know, when you start a project and you know it's going to be used eventually in something, but you sort of lose a little interest. That's what happened. So, all right. That tells that story, and that mouse is going to be working on it. So she probably doesn't need those other colours. She just needs some thread. So we don't need those. Miss Slow Stitch Girl is over here. So what we might do is I'll get another spindle, which I believe I have without anything on it. Yep. Yes, just grabbing that. So I've got a spare spindle. So that can just sit on the table as that's what she's up to. This is a spindle with the calico on it, ready to create a slow stitch piece. I think that's glued down. So we can have that there ready for her to actually start her project on. She's got threads to pick from, and she can't decide if she's doing embroidery or just some normal slow stitching. So that can be the story there. And Miss Mouse over here is going to be, and maybe I join a few of these together. Maybe we get a centerpiece, like a start, because we sort of do have a corner here, and one of those would work, but 3/4 of one would look really cool. Okay, so that means we need probably 1, 2, 3, 4. So we do like the start of one out of the fabrics. We're going to need colours that stand out because we're looking into the background of this piece. So we might do a pale centre and then 3 pieces of the dark blue. So that'll be her piece that she's working on. All right, easy, done. And then she's making 3, so we might have 3 of the untouched pieces, and then what we'll do is I can make up a couple more if I've got enough of that dark blue. There we go. So they're already made, but single pieces. So we're telling the story. We've got empty template, covered template, and the start of the flower. And then I'm wondering if I can get some wadding. And I was just looking at this reel of cotton. Look, there's like a little blue reel of cotton. This is part of a heap of threads that I got with a basket. So maybe we throw that reel of cotton on there as well. That cotton. So that's sort of part of her story, and I'll save those for elsewhere. I think my table might be getting a bit full with this, to be honest. So that might get saved for upstairs, which is not a bad thing because there's a lot of space to fill. So that's going to find a home elsewhere. Now, miscutting fabric here. I might just do like this, some scraps, like she's been prepping something. I also have a trolley. Let's have a look at that. Where did it get to? So this is like the teacher's companion, we'll call it. It's sitting off to the side and she is filling it full of stuff. Hang on, just pop things away. So it's a little bit tall, it's a little bit out of scale, but it's a great space. Maybe I fill this full of things the teacher's prepping for a class or a project. Let's say she's doing a quilt or something like that. So she's got some fat packs of fabric from upstairs. She's got her scissors. We'll have some scraps because I've got them just lying here nearby, and that will be full of bits that's sort of connected to her story. So there you go. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to need a runner on the table. Most likely we'll go something neutral so that all of this pops. The chairs will get covered like I did in the kitchen, but I'll decide on that fabric once this is done because that I don't want it to clash. I want it to complement. So let me just move this out of the way, and we've got a plan for that. So I've just got to, make it, tidy it, and build it. Literally make it. All right, I'm just going to put those away before they get in my way and lost in the abyss. So, okay. Mice and their clothing, another day. Not today. There's enough to work to do. So that I've just got to create a runner sampler to hang down the balustrading. So that's easy. A basket to hold bits for her. I may even have a basket, but the problem is I've run out of space there. So I might need to literally make a tiny itty bitty, basket somehow. Or slow stitch. Yeah. Maybe I do it like we would a slow stitched bowl. Just thinking. Where's a pen? Let's have a quick play with that. So let's just get ourselves a circle. I think this circle's too big, but let's start. So let's cut it out. So this is the classic fabric bowl that we've all been making for years now. So let's make one for the mouse house. And then it's a case of cutting it in to bring the sides up. Let's do it properly, don't just guess it, but you know how it goes. We'll start with the 4, but we might need to put some more. And then you turn it over a fraction. Pinning it's going to be a challenge, but we'll just go like that so you guys can see the shape if you never made one of these. Welcome to the world of slow stitch. If you've come to my channel due to the miniature world, these are really cool, even just for your own craft room. So, and at this point you decide, do you want your walls of your bowl to stand more upright, or you want it more of an open bowl? And you cover it with fabric scraps and stitch. That holds it all together. So this fabric that you're seeing now is just the base. So there's your bowl. It just makes a great bowl. I don't know if I'd want it much smaller, to be honest. It'll all depend on the table, won't it? And then what I'll do is put these bits maybe rolled up or something inside. So there's the table, and the bowl could sit somewhere. Maybe it sits next to the container of threads. That's how we'll do it. So that bowl's pretty good. So there you go. That's the bowl connected to that girl. All right, that's the plan. Now, what I want to do with you guys next, this is all slow stitching related for the miniaturists out there. Welcome to the world of slow stitch again. So I'm making the quilt, the big feature quilt, which showcases slow stitching. I've chosen a background fabric. I like how there's a bit of a selvage on the bottom, makes it interesting. And I'm just placing it on a piece of calico or muslin just to, I don't know, give my hands something to hang on to. This size piece is perfect for the wall, so I use that to get my background. I've also grabbed a couple extra elements, a little bit of lace, just to sort of create a bit of interest on the piece. And I thought maybe a little bit of texture could also come on to the project with a little bit of hemp. And maybe we put that there, that there. And then the plan is to fussy cut out these little bits and bobs and build up a new image which will be stitched into position, and then threads used to enhance the flowers and, you know, make it pretty. And then it can be put on a piece of dowel, which is the post to hold it, onto the wall. So that's all my projects. I need to make a hexagon inspired English paper pieced panel, create some English paper piece bits and bobs for a certain little mouse, and then something like that. Love these tulips too, love that. Such a pretty little piece of fabric. Style the table. The tea service table is pretty straightforward. All the elements are there. I just need to, you know, make sure everything's held down with a little bit of glue so that it can be put into position. So that's nothing really to create. I've got some bits and bobs left over in the way of sweet treats. I may even have a little bit of cheese left over that didn't make it into that last larder. And then that can be, you know, just fixed together and popped into position. There is a spot on the wall behind that that could have a little sampler of something. Maybe a quilt block. I haven't thought that far yet. You know, I also don't want to cover my walls up too much, which these quilts certainly are, because there's gorgeous bits and pieces on the wall from the antique French papers and things like that. So, you know, sometimes take a breath, don't need to fill it, is a good thing to do as well. So, yeah, my brother's visiting at the moment for a couple of days, bit of fishing, catch up, sit and chat, have a bit of a break, and a bit of shopping. He needs a bit of clothes and, you know, socks and jocks and all those fun things. So the boys are in the kitchen having a chat. I think they're planning to shoot down to the local shops and get some bait, and he wants to throw a fishing line in to that lake. He might just catch something. I doubt it. We don't seem to catch anything. I think they're way too smart. We see fishermen there all the time, and not very often we see a fish. I think fish have figured it out. Well, I hope they are, and they just stay away from tasty treats on a hook. So they're going to do that. So, and then once they've done that, I think 2:30 we're going to head into the bay, Harvey Bay, and do that little bit of shopping for him. And then he would love some Chinese takeaway or Thai takeaway. So my brother's out in the country, 2 hours west of me, and there's just none of those types of shops. The Chinese takeaway shop closed down years ago. So whenever he comes to visit, you know, that's a bit of a treat. So we thought we'd get some Thai. I don't think he's ever had Thai. Chinese has always been the go-to. But I think we can do a little bit better and have some Thai food. So that little piece is going to go there. And we might just bring this little guy in there. We'll sort of have it somehow swishing up. Do I get rid of those? I'll just do a rose next. I like that. So let's break it down even more. I did look at the Tilda fabric that I'm putting on the bolts of fabric upstairs in the house, and that's the new Christmas one from last year. And there's a gorgeous little flowerette thing there. Maybe I could do something with that too. So maybe we do that. Yeah, I don't mind that. That'd look rather sweet, slow stitched. I do still have those, but I don't think we can use them. Let's nibble out some of these little leaves. So this is going to be in the style and technique that I used recently in another series where I made the Lewis Miller inspired booklet that had lots of little flowers pieced together to create a whole new bunch of flowers using all of these little fabrics that have tiny itty bitty flowers on them. I'm going to take this one and see if we can use it just to raise this side. I feel like we could do something a bit more up there to grow our, yep. Yeah, that feels a little bit more balanced. I have a straight line here. Let's get some flowers like that piece there. And I'll go this darker turquoise. Like out of this whole building of this mouse manor, chateau, French inspired, it's the textiles and those elements that I've loved the most. You know, making the bed linens and furniture making's fine and all, but it's probably not my favouriteest bit. I have made a few pieces for it. So I'm thinking we put that there just to soften that corner. I'm thinking we need that little flower showing, so we might do that instead. Yes, that looks neater where that rose connects. I think I might leave it at that. I think that's enough. I've got my pins here, so we'll pin this. So in the slow stitch world, we would invisible stitch this all down just with thread, tiny little stitches, holds it all into position, gets rid of all these pins that are also holding it into position for now. And then I come back with various cottons. Could use all of that actually, and I think I will. Look at that. Like the green will work, the sage, there's pink. Pink, might need a different pink, but yeah, that's going to be my pot. So once all that is stitched down, pins are gone, I'll also stitch down these pieces of lace. There's my panel of slow stitch for the back wall. Right, now what else did I want to do with you guys before I dodged off? I think that's it. I think that's it. This little project just needs all of the papers taken out. How are we going for time? We've got time. So that's, if you don't know what this is all about, this English paper piecing, I'd recommend you pop it into YouTube. You will find so many videos on technique, talking to the miniature people now that don't do what we stitchers do. You need the little papers. They come in various shapes and sizes to help you create your little piece of stitching. So I'm now just taking out my tacking threads. All the stitches will be like, yeah, we know all this. Yeah, I know we know all this, but you know, we've got viewers from the furniture making world and the polymer clay making food world, and the miniature world is just so varied. It's very cool. So once I get this all out, yep, I think there are knots on the other side, and just snip this center one. Yep, looks pretty good. I should be able to turn out ever so carefully the little paper templates. And then with the iron, I should be able to reinstate all of those folds. Let's just flick them out. It's so fiddly. You can see why I'm making a whole quilt again, because, you know, the bed's got one that I was like, oh. But I knew English paper piecing would need to be somewhere in the house. So what I'll have to do upstairs now is actually go to my Liberty fabrics and make some Liberty. Because I did have the idea some time back that the shop upstairs would be themed, like have a French general section. Liberty could be another section. Slow stitching, and then your notions and things like that. So now it's a case of just pinning it with all those, oops, pins flying everywhere. With all of those little edges down. Like, I'm not going to worry too much, because when I stitch this in place, I can use my needle just to tuck all those little folded bits too. So if it's not quite perfect, No need to worry. The needle and thread will catch it all. Can't believe how quickly I got a blister. Like, my hands have just got too soft. I swept a floor for probably 10 minutes. Well, I guess it was a 3-bedroom house, lounge and kitchen diner thing, but it's my brother's selling his little house because, as you know, if you watch my channel, we've inherited the family farm, so his little house is no longer required. So we've been going over every so often and clearing it out, relocating the last of his personal items, doing a bit of a rubbish dump run, whippersnipping, mowing, and the final stage was me sweeping it out and cleaning cupboards and, getting it ready. So I was on the broom, and it's a little forestry cottage that got moved into town when one of the forestries nearby sort of closed down production. So they must have auctioned these 4 little houses or 3 little houses and relocated them, subdivided a piece of land, and 20 years later we come along and my brother bought this little house. So it's just a little rectangle, and it's sort of got the 3 bedrooms, the hallway connecting them, bathroom and kitchen, bathroom and toilet, and then at the other end of the little rectangle is the lounge where you enter the property, a kitchen, and you can get a table, and there's a little deck at the front, little deck at the back. So very simple, classic railway forestry little home. So the plan is to, pop it on the market. And we're finally to the stage where we're meeting the agent, and the one next door sold about 6 months ago. And when I called the agent to say, we're nearly ready, are you interested in a meet and greet? We sort of do know the chap. I think he sold my parents' original farm. They had a big dairy farm, small crops, Lucerne, for many, many, many years. That's where I grew up, and bought a smaller farm closer to town. And he was the agent that sold the farm, so he sort of knows our family. So after a day of the final clean-up, my brother's jumped in the car and has come back to here for a couple of days of holiday-ish activities, a bit of a catch-up, a bit of a break, and then we go back tomorrow to meet the agent at my brother's little house, and it's just up the road from the farm because we're in a little country town, and put the house on the market. Well, he rang me on our way back to here yesterday afternoon and said, I think I've got a cash buyer already, because when the house next door sold 6 months ago, there was quite a lot of interest, and one chap in particular missed out. But he certainly was very, very keen on the house. And because it's identical to my brother's, and in worse condition it was apparently. I never saw it. I got no idea really. The agent's like, they will be really interested because they can literally move into my brother's little place and sit down. We replaced the kitchen when my brother bought it. Gaz and I put a new kitchen in. We renovated the bathroom. And we moved the washing machine that was out on the little rear deck to a cupboard within the bathroom itself. It had a massive linen cupboard, really wide, really tall to the roof, lots of shelves. So we had the bright idea of bringing the washing machine from outside and putting it inside, which was great. Got it out of the weather, redid the plumbing in the process, and painted, freshened it up, retiled the bathroom. We didn't take the bathtub out. We just put some nice new tiles around. So the bathroom got a makeover, put a new vanity in. So the house is pretty schmick. And I think my brother had it for 10 years, 15 years, something like that. So it still looks really good. So when I sent some pictures through to the agent, he was like, oh, yeah, that's great. My client will love it. He's a cash buyer and missed out on the one next door, which was a mess and had a lot of work to do. So yeah, we don't have a contract yet. You know, you don't know you sold until you actually have the contract signed. So it's all talk at the moment. So yeah, that's the story lately of what's going on. And in the process, I've pretty much flipped all of these little cardboard templates out, and they're going to work perfectly on that little piece. So that one will go there. I think we'll drop them in colour down. So I might toddle off. I've got plenty to do here, and I'll be back with anything new that you don't already know, or nothing much else changes and I just have to execute the plans we have afoot. Show you the styled pieces done, ready to go. And it's got all of the little threads. There's a knot. And we flick them out. I think the boys are heading off down to the shops to get their bait next. So they'll muck around with that. And I can do a bit of stitching. So I said to my brother, I'm just going to do this little video, because he was sitting on the couch there for a bit with me, catching up on Yibby Yabba. I was forcing him to watch slow stitch videos. So I think the boys will go and do all those shenanigans, and then we'll head into town later. I think I got them. Oh, the little one in the middle. Probably could have left them in, to be honest, but there's all those messy threads from creating it. So there you go. I'll just do that. I'll probably stitch around it just to finish it. Yeah. All right, guys, I'll toddle off. I think you know what I'm up to, and I'll be back in a second or two to show you the final elements. Hello again. So I think 3 days have gone by since I filmed the last little bit of footage that you were just watching. So I apologise if some things don't quite make sense, because I've changed my mind on a few little installations. Now, first of all, let's start with the textiles. I was showing you how I plan to make a hexagon quilt, but to be honest, after that experience of making the little itty bitty hexagons, 3 was the best I could muster. They were already made, and I just thought, nah, that's it. So all the scrappy bits that were cut out ready to make more of these, I used to edge this little panel. Now, how that sort of also came to be is when I went to the railing to have a look at that space to hang a quilt, you'll see in a moment, I found that the ones hanging was covering down below the bookcase too much. I've still got the one there, but then the second space that would have been the English paper piece hanging quilt, I end up doing this sampler. So with it sort of gathered a little bit on that railing, it fills the space but doesn't stop you seeing the space below. It'll make sense when you see it over there. So that was the first thing that adjusted in the last 3 days. Nothing changed with these. The only thing that changed was their location. I have been flipping these things around on the back wall, and it sort of, when I was in the process of making my 3rd piece for the wall, this one, which you've just seen me put together, it just became a wall of quilts. And I don't know, it just looked a bit boring. And it's like this section is where you're learning to do English paper piecing and a little bit of slow stitch and a little bit of everything else, because it's a classroom. And then my back wall just, I don't know, lacked a little, I don't know. You'll know what I mean when you see the pieces all installed. But I carried on with this and I finished it. So now I have I guess, a wall piece ready to go up that's all thread painted. And might be suited to upstairs, because I've actually rejected this at this stage. And look, at the end of the day, if it never makes it to the mouse house, I'll use it on something, but I think I can use it upstairs, because 3 little quilts in a row, these 3, I don't know, just didn't look right. So these 2 are happening. That got adjusted to just a sampler, and that at the moment is going upstairs. In addition, I haven't done anything with the mice. Another video, another day. I think I said earlier in this video there's probably only this one and the next one left. I think that was wishful thinking. There was so much energy and time went into this that I think upstairs, this is just one little area. Upstairs is pretty much 3, and I've had some other ideas. Like, there's nothing better than just taking your time, mulling things. So I don't think it's going to be one more episode. So for those of you who are serious fans of this whole project, there will be more. And I think making the mice's dresses and outfits could be something of its own episode, because there's so much work in that. Anyway, enough said. I found that upstairs. I have a feeling I can use it in this space, so I've just added it to my little pile. In going through my box of tricks of bits and pieces, I found this little frame with a, dodgy old dude in. So just ignore my hands. They are so sore and dry, and oh my goodness, I spent a couple of days at the farm. And for those of you who know what farm work's like, it's been mucking around with fencing, mucking around with tractors, mucking around with all things farming. And cleaning, and anyway, beside the point. So I feel like my hands have returned back to manual labour. So I'm just going to use what's left of me that's looking half decent, and that's my pinkies. I put a bit of Tilda fabric in that little frame. That little frame, I think, is going to complement nicely this little table piece here. I'll just slide it over very carefully. So this is going against the wall. It's going to be in a different position to what you think. You would have seen it at the end of the balustrading. I don't think it's going to go there. If I change my mind, all of this can be adjusted, but I think it's going to go on the opposite wall. So when you look at the table, you then look through that table space and you see the cup of tea service at the end. That balustrading wall area is going to be just the quilts. It's like the little gallery of quilts. So when people look at the library downstairs and their eyes come up, all they see is the quilts. And for the majority of people looking at my house, I've noticed that textile-y things like that just float past them. They don't register. So if anything, it's just a space for the eyes to rest, is how I think the balustrading is going to be upstairs. I might put in a vintage sewing machine up there leaning against the quilts that I've got. It's on a stand. It looks like an old Singer. I think that might be a good spot just to pop it. It'll have its own space there. So that's where I'm at with the tea service. I had a spare cushion from the couch upstairs that I did embellish. I tea dyed it, embellished it, but it was too many cushions. There was no room for a mouse to sit. So actually it went into the library area. So I'm going to put that spare cushion there. It's a good way to get a bit of textiles into the bottom of my little table. I have a spare basket here as well. There's nothing in the basket yet, and the basket might get pilfered and taken upstairs anyway. Actually, I think it will. They're not going to see down here because there's a table, chairs, mice having a lesson in front of it. So I think that's a waste of a little asset, so we'll take that away. On the top, I just created some napkins. The last of my blue tea service is here. That's it. They're all used. That was 2 packs of, I don't know, a dozen pieces that I think I got 2 sets. Yeah, something like that. Big old teapot fits nicely there. I found a little packet with some little silver spoons I'd forgotten I had, and put a little table runner, which was just a piece of fabric. So that install piece is ready to go. So that makes sense. And this pot plant will be, floating around. The frame of this Tilda is going to go on the wall connected to that T setting, I think. Now, the wall of quilts got replaced by this, and you can see everything should be dry, but I'm going to be very gentle with it. This is a combination of containers of lace, my jelly rolls that I've made using a vlog from a lady, details are down below, that shows you how to make fat quarters, jelly rolls and bolts of fabric for miniature. So I started fiddling around with these when Tia came, which was, oh gosh, what, September, August last year. They take hours, and whenever I have some scrap fabric, I just throw them in a bowl and make a couple more. The paddle pop sticks are cut down to the sizes I need. I did some little ones here that I knew would stand this way. And then I did some longer ones just to make them feel like they're a little bit more substantial. A couple little bits of doily here. I didn't end up doing anything in the drawers. They're not going to be seen. There's a railing and chairs and all sorts. So I guess sometimes you can overwork a space, and you put in all this effort and asset into a place and you can't even sort of see it. So I've got to be a little bit mindful of overworking some of these pieces, but I think that's come up beautifully. The other thing too is at the beginning of this video, I had rejected this cabinet and put it upstairs. And the reason it was in that space, this one we're working on, is because of its sizing. It's out of proportion to some of the cabinets upstairs. So it looked a bit odd. And when it went back up there, I'm like, I remember why you got put downstairs into the classroom, because you just don't fit. And it fits beautifully downstairs. But what I've done is I'm going to balance it between the walkway, the thin, narrow space, and the classroom. So it's actually going to straddle the two. And I think what that did is connected the whole space. If you imagine that's now on the wall, and the balustrading is coming along in like a right angle here, comes in and then goes along, and that's the walkway. There's going to be a quilt this side and a quilt this side. So I guess you'll see when I install it, it's like it's brought the space together. It just worked. When it was this, and this, it looked hollow. Now this feels like it is part of what they're doing in the room. And over here on this wall here is where the tea service will go, sort of further along. The quilt's in between the two. So now that is connected. You got a quilt to look at, you get your cup of tea, you get your supplies, the teacher's there. The other thing that made this all happen was you're doing a class and there's no bits and pieces for you to grab for your students. I just thought that was just wrong. And to have to race upstairs to get supplies because one of your students says, oh, I'd like to put a pop of red in my English paper pieced quilt. That sentence will make sense in a minute. I was like, if I was the teacher, I'd be like, can we please have a cabinet down here with some supplies in it? And I think that little small cabinet that was floating around must have been my thought way back when. Anyway, beside the point. So the table installation. First of all, I have completed the seats where I've just popped a little bit of, fabric on the seats, tie back. I did the same in the kitchen. I kept them neutral because there's so much going on. The last thing I wanted to see was 4 big blobs of colour around the seating. So the table, let me bring that back over, is completed. This is why I didn't get to those mice. I was so, just hours, hours. So that table will go there. There'll be a student on that chair. So the chair will sort of push back a little bit. This chair is a bit obsolete because there's no student. And there's a student here at the end. So if we have a look at the top of the table, let me just jiggle it a little bit because you're a bit out of camera shot there. The student, the mouse that's sitting here, is learning how to slow stitch, and the teacher's given them some examples of just classic camphor stitching, or they can do a snippet roll with some embroidery, and that's the theme of the whole cottage. That's thimbleberries, the little plant that mice and deer eat out in the wild, up in Europe, not Australia. So she's got a spare spool, she's got a spool with cloth on it ready to go, her scissors and her pins, her needle, everything's ready to go, and a little cluster of threads. Now those orts I did in the camera where I just poked them in there and I said, oh, I'll work that a little more, I won't make it as messy. To be honest, I really like it. I think it's because there's so much going on that it just is, I guess, another place for the eye to rest. So there will be technically a mousey sitting here working on this project, okay? So that's the slow stitch side of our little classroom. Now this here is English paper piecing and all things of happening here. I made another little sample and that's sitting there. When I put it at the back, like I think I said in the earlier video, you couldn't see it at the angle. You need a lot of action happening at the front, I've noticed, when you're looking into these things. So the back is just scraps, the scissors, the reel of cotton. Look, I might move it because it might not be seen and bring it more forward. It's a shame to waste that little guy there. I might even put it right here. I know it doesn't make sense and it's connected to her, but the teacher is going to be standing on this corner because she's not only helping this student, she's helping this student. I ended up making, like, seriously, for those stitches that are watching, and our bowls, our snippet bowls where we've been fabric stitching lots of fabrics onto a bowl shape and then slow stitching, and yeah, that is a miniature fabric bowl. I know you guys are rolling your eyes out there thinking, oh my goodness, she's made a miniature bowl. It is just so adorable. Have I glued it down? Yeah, I have, so I can't pick it up. I've put in some little rolls of Liberty fabric. Now these little scrappy bits were cut out ready to make the Ytube quilt, which didn't happen. So they became little jelly rolls of lollies is what most of the shops call them now. Just little bits of fabric ready to go for English paper piecing. A mess of scraps around the back there. The 3 little hexagons that weren't damaged from me mucking around are strategically placed. So is that little tuft of cotton, and I put a little piece hanging out to the front. Couple blocks here. I'm thinking that this is a whole nother project. So either the teacher's amusing herself with prepping for the next class, which is a French general tilde something, or this English paper piecing student over here can't decide if she wants red in her little quilt. So that's Mousy going in there. If she wants red, so there's a bit of red floating around. So that's a sort of a couple stories happening there. To fill in, like I said, there's always looking at the front of it. All I can see is underneath the table here. So I created a basket of bolts of fabric. So that will be somewhere placed there to help fill the bottom of the table in. This here was a miniature cutting table that I'd created ages ago. I got the idea from Tia. She had put one in her craft room and it was on the table where this mouse was cutting. It's too big and I didn't want to scale it down because it looked too small. And I put so much effort into creating this table runner, which is beautiful old hemp. I stitched around the edge. I strategically did some pink stitching there to make it look slow stitchy. Like, I spent ages on that runner. And the last thing I wanted to do was plop that on top. So what I'm going to do to help build up that front edge of my table is I'm going to angle it under the table. So it's there on site. The teacher can grab it if she needs it, clear a bit of space and cut some fabric. She probably never will because she can't fit it on the table. But maybe these guys go home and she can pull this out and carry on making some bundles of fabric to go into the shelf. There you go. See, I can spin a story to make it sound like I know what it's meant to be there for. Okay. Oh, and the other piece that I created, you're probably wondering, where's the extra chair? Here it is. The extra chair. Now, remember I was considering putting this piece of plastic entourage carrying apparatus, it just doesn't look right. It's the wrong size for it. It's a really cool piece, but it's the wrong size. It doesn't fit in the whole scene, and it was cramping up the connection between the bedroom entry and this space. And I had this chair sitting there as well, and I'm thinking, by the time the chair goes in, and then you've got this going in next to the chair, you see what I mean? It's not right. So that got rejected, and the chair became another spot out here where the teacher can have some supplies ready for the class. So we've got our fabrics, and we've got a bolt of fabric on the chair that's half rolled out. Like, they're all fiddling around. So I figured it needed to be a bit messy. So that chair became my extra piece. When I put it over in the house, if I forget to mention, some of these little scrappy bits of fabric I've sprinkled on the floor, on the very floor. So it's like bits have fallen off the table. So if you're wondering what the blue squares are down there, yeah, that's what they are. Okay, well, I'll pause the video again. I'm going to install all of these bits and bobs. Yeah, I'll get them into place, and then I'll take the camera over there and you can have a little look at the final room. Yay, we're nearly there. Okay, before I pop the table into position, that's the back wall, the final decision. I'm so pleased with it. I think it's a lot more interesting. So the snack table, cup of tea table got moved over to there, which I think makes that corner more of a focal point. If you go to the alleyway of quilts over here, we've got our big quilt, the little one, and now you can see down into the library. The quilt at the back has also the sewing machine table sitting in front of it. You probably can't see it as easy because I'm looking at a different angle to you, but it's one of those little pieces. So that's just sitting there against that quilt, and I think it just looks beautiful there. My pegs, mini pegs, are holding all those pieces in. I've got the cabinet in the background that holds supplies, and see how it's between the two spaces. Instead of having it over there where it was, or over here where it once was, it's in the middle. So I sort of feel like it connects the area. It's lovely to have a bit of space here. Didn't need anything, and the quilt does the trick. And there's those little scraps of fabric that you might be wondering why are there 3 blue liberties on the floor there. The pot plant will sit there because it's sort of, that's like a funny little end that just needed a little trim of something. Now the table is going in next. I'm just going to grab those. The chair with supplies on it can just sit over there. The chairs in the background with the mouse sitting on it will be back there. I can adjust them accordingly, but I need to sort of get them in there to get the space worked out. Here comes the table, so we'll slide that in there, and we also need to get our chair for that other mouse in as well. So it's just a case now of a little bit of a jiggle. Turn the chair so the mouse can sit back into that corner. Hope she never falls over that balustrading. In comes the chair there that's not being used. That chair can sit back a little bit for the mouse that is doing English paper piecing. Our pot plant can sit there just to finish that corner. Our teacher will stand here and lean onto that corner. We'll put mouse in chair at back. Shame I didn't get time to do their clothes, but so much work. This just is so full on, so good, but I'm really thoroughly enjoying the whole thinking process, you know, the figuring it out. Why doesn't it look right? What can you adjust? Thinking about design and space and story, and yeah, really cool. So there's the mice at the table. I'm just looking up at my TV to make sure that that looks right, and see how this became an issue. That's where we can poke, oops, we can poke that in, like bring it back a little bit. I pushed it forward. Trust me, it works. I did have a little play with it. It just needs to find its right angle to be there. And then she's got some more supplies at the front here, just in case the student needs it or she's preparing. I think more she's preparing fat quarter bundles and jelly rolls and things for the back shelf. So it's sort of giving her something to do. So there you go. That is the final install. I'm going to move this chair forward a little bit so it still feels like it's part of this scene, because it was blocking the doorway to the bedroom. You can't see that detail that I just did, so I'm just going to slide it that way. So yeah, so now they can walk around the back and the chair is more visible. That's where that trolley would have been. You can see why the trolley just didn't work. So love the chair. Photos on the back wall with the dodgy old man's gone. It's sitting over the tea set. You can easily see the tea set. Yeah, happy, done. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. That's that section done. The next section is the one above, which is like the dumping station for the whole house. But that's all good. I can now sort of move into that. And like seriously, I might need to break it down into zones. That's why one video, it's just impossible. Anyway, we'll carry on. Doesn't matter. It'll be done when it's done. We'll get there when we get there. It's all part of the journey. All right, guys, look after yourselves and I'll catch you in the next mousy adventures. Bye.